The cultural archetype of the Sigma male is shrouded in an aura of enigmatic competence. Popular discourse paints a portrait of a man who operates with seamless independence, a figure of unshakable capability and innate control. He is imagined as the individual who navigates complex situations with effortless grace, requiring neither external validation nor assistance. This perception constructs an image of a self-contained system, a human unit so thoroughly optimized that weakness appears alien. Yet, this monolithic view is profound oversimplification. Beneath the composed exterior lies a complex psychological landscape marked by specific, often invisible, friction points. These are not catastrophic failures or glaring flaws, but rather a series of subtle, everyday dissonances, situations deemed simple by the broader social consensus but which, to the Sigma male, feel intrinsically misaligned. The confusion stems from the stark contrast between external perception and internal experience. He continues to show up, to function, to project an image of unbothered calm. Internally, however, the gears do not mesh as the world assumes they do. For the individual wired this way, these moments are familiar territory. They are instances of quiet perplexity, where one wonders why a fundamental social transaction feels uncomfortable, why one notices subtext and pattern where others see only surface, why one's reactions deviate from prescribed script. The majority navigates these waters without a second thought, accepting the currents of social convention. The Sigma male, however, is compelled to drop anchor and take soundings. He questions. This analysis seeks to illuminate those rarely discussed patterns, not as a critique or an attempt to dismantle, but as a detailed explanation for why certain scenarios resonate with a different, often discordant, frequency for the Sigma male. To understand these traits is to fundamentally alter one's perception of them. 1. The anatomy of distrust, inability to accept rapid intimacy. For the majority, the forging of friendship follows a familiar and often accelerated trajectory. A shared laugh, a flowing conversation, a mutual interest. These are the kindling that quickly ignites a bond of camaraderie. This rapid progression is not only normal but desirable, a sign of social fluency and connection. For the Sigma male, however, this same velocity triggers a deep-seated psychological alarm. When a stranger undergoes a metamorphosis into a confidant within the span of days, it registers not as fortune, but as a strategic bypass of due process. This is not a manifestation of misanthropy or a lack of desire for meaningful connection. Rather, it is a fundamental questioning of motive. Why would anyone rush a procedure that, by its very nature, requires a slow, deliberate accretion of trust? Consider the foundational elements of genuine relational bonds. Authentic friendship is a structure built over time. Its strength is tested and proven not in moments of shared pleasure, but in episodes of adversity, inconvenience, and disagreement. It requires the observation of character across a spectrum of circumstances. To see if professed values hold under pressure, if actions remain congruent with words over weeks and months, not merely a handful of agreeable interactions. To rush headlong past this essential period of evaluation feels, to the Sigma, inherently suspect. It mimics the behavior of someone attempting to skip the crucial chapters of a story where the protagonist's true nature is revealed. This contrasts sharply with other social archetypes. The alpha male, for instance, may evaluate potential alliances through a different lens, one of status, utility, and network enhancement. If an association burnishes his reputation or provides advantageous connections, the depth of personal knowledge may be of secondary concern. The Sigma male's calculus is introspective and protective. He operates on the principle that one's inner circle acts as a formative ecosystem. The people granted proximity inevitably shape one's thoughts, habits, and trajectory. Therefore, the decision of who gains entry is treated with immense gravity. The adage, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with," is not a platitude to the Sigma. It is an operational directive. His social strategy is not one of collection, of amassing contact to populate a calendar or digital followers list. It is an exercise in curation, the painstaking assembly of a compact, resilient circle where trust is absolute precisely because it is not hastily granted. Trust, in this framework, is a currency that cannot be minted overnight. It is earned through consistent, observable deposit over an extended period. This deliberate pace inevitably projects an aura of distance or coldness. When confronted with a person who accelerates intimacy, oversharing personal history immediately, demanding constant companionship, declaring unwavering loyalty prematurely, The average person interprets this as enthusiastic warmth. The Sigma male interprets it as a breach of protocol. He wonders, what is the urgency? What facet of their character are they hoping to conceal before I have time to discover it organically? This is not born of paranoia nor belief in universal malevolence. It is born of an understanding that authentic connection is patient. A person with pure intent will not resent the necessary timeline. They will walk it willingly. A person with disingenuous motives will reveal their frustration and swiftly seek a more impressionable target. This filtering mechanism is, in fact, the Sigma's primary method of discernment. The cost of this methodology, however, is a pronounced efficiency in the arena of rapid social bonding. In transient environments, a new corporate office, a recent relocation, a fresh social club, while others seamlessly form instant cliques and alliances, the Sigma remains in a state of observational reserve. He is compiling data, noting inconsistencies, waiting for patterns to emerge. By the time his internal criteria for trust are met, the social architecture has often solidified, leaving him perceived as an outsider or loner. Yet, this is a consciously accepted trade-off. The Sigma male would unequivocally choose the solitude of the periphery over the dissonant noise of the inner circle populated by false allies. In his existential accounting, genuine solitude is preferable to the corrosive burden of feigned fellowship. This is a bargain that much of the social world is neither structured to understand nor willing to make, for it privileges the integrity of inner peace over the comfort of external belonging. 2. The tyranny of logic, the compulsion to correct in its social cost. Imagine a scenario, a meeting room, a casual discussion, any forum where ideas are exchanged. A statement is made that is factually incorrect or logically unsound. Within the Sigma male's mind, a correction forms with the inevitability of a reflex, a clear, unambiguous pathway to rectify the error before it proliferates and seeds poor decisions. Simultaneously, a social awareness activates, warning that voicing this correction will brand him as the antagonist, the pedant, the know-it-all, the disruptor of harmony. A conflict erupts between intellectual integrity and social preservation. He attempts silence. He wrestles with the impulse. But to watch a group build consensus upon a flawed premise is, to his mind, analogous to observing engineers approving blueprints for a skyscraper erected on fractured bedrock. The eventual collapse is not a possibility. It is a thermodynamic certainty. And each successive layer of planning or agreement constructed atop that fault line only amplifies the magnitude of the eventual failure. Thus, he speaks. His intervention is not motivated by a desire to showcase intelligence or to dominate the conversation. It is propelled by a sense of responsibility, a feeling that silence constitutes complicity in a future disaster. He addresses the idea, not the person. The reaction is almost universally predictable. The atmosphere chills. Defensiveness rises. The correction is perceived as a personal attack. Accusations fly. He is being negative. He is not a team player. He lacks supportive spirit. This is a core dissonance. He was pursuing accuracy, while the group was pursuing cohesion. In his value hierarchy, accuracy concerning consequential matters must supersede transient feelings, for feelings are ephemeral, while the outcomes of poor decisions are concrete. Herein lies a deficiency. The Sigma male is psychologically incapable of performing agreement he does not genuinely feel. Most individuals possess a social lubricant that allows them to nod along, to let minor inaccuracies slide for the greater good of group harmony and forward momentum. They can tolerate the cognitive dissonance because the social reward of belonging outweighs the abstract cost of letting an error persist. The Sigma's cognitive architecture lacks this particular lubricant. The dissonance is not abstract. It is acute. Wrong is wrong, and to leave it unaddressed feels like a dereliction of a fundamental duty, a moral and intellectual obligation rather than a made choice of social strategy. Consequently, he becomes the individual who kills a vibe. He transmutes simple, fluid conversations into complex, stalled deliberations. He inadvertently turns brainstorming sessions, designed for unfettered idea generation, into rigorous debate chambers. His intent is not to dominate but to refine and fortify. Yet, the effect is one of exhaustion for colleagues who seek the emotional validation of shared ideas before subjecting them to stress tests. He is bad, in the social sense, at letting incorrect information stand unchallenged because his mind processes the long-term cost of that information as unacceptably high. This creates a recurrent tension between his drive for optimal outcomes and the group's need for smooth, affirming processes. 3. The aversion to sustained scrutiny, the spotlight as a resource drain. The Sigma male can tolerate, and even effectively utilize, focused attention in discrete, purposeful bursts. Delivering a presentation, answering a technical question, providing a solution during crisis. These are spotlight moments with defined objective and a clear endpoint. He can function within them because the attention is on the task or the information, not on the amorphous entity of his self. The trouble begins when the spotlight lingers beyond its functional utility, transforming from a tool of communication into a vessel for prolonged personal exposure. When asked to expound upon himself, his achievements, his journey, his personal qualities, every passing second becomes increasingly burdensome. This is not merely humility, though it may be mistaken for such. It is because extended visibility feels like an inefficient expenditure of energy with diminishing returns. For many, positive attention is a source of sustenance. It validates worth, fosters connection, and reinforces social standing. They enjoy narrating their experiences, crafting their personal mythology, and holding an audience. For the Sigma, attention is a taxing resource drain. The longer the collective gaze remains fixed upon him, the more psychic energy must be diverted to manage perceptions, to maintain the image being projected onto him, and to perform the expected version of himself that the audience anticipates. Crucially, he is not adept at performing himself. He is adept at being himself, but being is a private, continuous state, not a public performance. Spotlight moment demand a curated presentation. One must be engaging, with a compelling narrative, modulate tone for effect, and essentially entertain. The Sigma's natural state is one of understated action and observation. When forced to narrate that state, the result often feels flat, unembellished, and underwhelming to an audience conditioned for showmanship. This deficiency manifests acutely during rituals of celebration, award ceremonies, public recognitions, toast-filled dinners. As praise is lavished upon him, the social script demands a gracious performance, the grateful smile, the heartfelt thank you, the humble speech acknowledging the team. The Sigma intellectually appreciates the recognition, but emotionally, he is navigating a minefield of discomfort. He feels trapped, dissociated from the ritual, mentally counting the seconds until he can retreat into the sanctuary of anonymity. His body language often betrays his internal struggle, leading others to perceive him as ungrateful, awkward, or aloof. The painful irony is that those offering the praise have invested effort to honor him, and his palpable desire to escape can feel like rejection. The truth is simpler and more self-contained. The medium of sustained celebration is itself the antagonist. He would gladly accept the same recognition in a written note or a private word. It is a prolonged, performative visibility, the sensation of being trapped under a relentless, warming lamp with no avenue for shade, that he is fundamentally ill-equipped to handle. 4. The analytical reception of praise, when compliments trigger an audit. For most, a compliment is a straightforward social transaction. Person A offers positive feedback. Person B accepts it with a thank you, experiencing a brief boost in effect. The circuit is simple and closed. For the Sigma male, this circuit is immediately intercepted by a parallel processor running a full diagnostic suite. A compliment is not merely a gift of good feeling. It is a data packet that must be decrypted, verified, and analyzed for source integrity before it can be integrated into his self-model. Upon hearing "great job" on that report, his mind does not bask in the praise. It launches a series of queries. Is the praise accurate? Did the report truly meet an objective standard of excellence, or was it merely adequate? Does the praiser genuinely believe this, or are they being polite, managing up, or following social protocol? What is the underlying motive? Is this a precursor to a request? An attempt to soften forthcoming criticism? A tactic to build social credit? This rapid-fire analysis creates a perceptible lag in his response. By the time he has processed the layers, the natural moment for a seamless thank you has elapsed. His eventual response often comes out as delayed, stiff, or oddly qualified. Thanks, though I think Section 3 could have been stronger, which can read as deflection or ingratitude. His behavior is not an attempt to be difficult or contrary. It is an extension of his drive for accuracy. Praise is a form of information about his performance and his place in the social landscape. All information, to be useful, must be scrutinized for bias and noise. To accept every compliment at face value would, in his view, lead to a dangerously inflated and inaccurate self-assessment. It would create blind spots, masking areas needing improvement beneath a layer of pleasant but unverified feedback. This makes him profoundly inefficient at the social ritual of receiving recognition. Someone offering praise seeks to create a moment of positive connection, a simple exchange of goodwill. The Sigma, unwittingly, transforms this simple exchange into a complex credibility assessment. He makes the praiser work unnecessarily hard, forcing them to defend or elaborate on their goodwill gesture. Consequently, people often stop praising him, not because his work is unworthy, but because the interaction is fraught and unrewarding. The profound irony is that the Sigma deeply values specific, accurate feedback. Tell him, "Your methodology on page 7 provided a clarity we were missing, and it directly influenced the client's decision," and he will absorb that praise completely and gratefully. It is data-rich and verifiable. Vague, generic accolades, "You're amazing," "Great work," lack the necessary signal and instead trigger his verification protocols. Once activated, this analytical engine cannot be idled by social convenience. This wiring costs him immense social capital, the subtle, accruing goodwill that smooths interactions and opens doors, a currency he often doesn't even realize is being depleted. 5. The unmanageable autonomy of thought, the inability to command mental silence. The Sigma male is commanded to engage in external activity, to sleep, to listen to a lecture, to participate in a routine meeting. Yet, his mind, possessing a will of its own, charters a course for a different destination. It latches onto an unsolved problem, follows a theoretical rabbit hole, constructs elaborate scenarios, or deconstructs a complex system. The external world fades into a low-resolution background. An attempt to reel his focus back is successful for a fleeting moment, only for the internal current to pull him under again seconds later. This is not a clinical attention deficit. It is not an inability to focus. On the contrary, when a subject truly engages him, his focus can be laser-like and profound, lasting for hours in a state of flow. The predicament is that the threshold for engagement is exceptionally high. Most mundane social and procedural tasks fail to meet it. Consequently, his cognitive resources, seeking efficient employment, self-direct toward matters it deems more productive or interesting. This renders him notoriously poor at the modern virtue of being present. In a conversation about trivialities, he may be physically anchored but mentally parsecs away. He catches enough keywords to offer coherent, if generic, response when required. That sounds tough, interesting point. But he routinely misses the emotional subtext, the unspoken plea for empathy, or the subtle relational cue. His partner may be sharing a story seeking connection, while he is mentally optimizing his workflow or pondering a philosophical paradox. The disconnect is not born of apathy, but of a cognitive prioritization that operates independently of his social volition. The same phenomenon sabotages rest. In the quiet of night, when conscious control should recede, his mental engine refuses to power down. Thoughts cascade in associative chains, one conceptual link sparking the next, building intricate logical structures or solving problems with no immediate urgency. He is aware of the need for sleep, feels a fatigue in his body, but possesses no master switch for the humming generator of his mind. The attempt to stop thinking becomes a metathought, which is itself more thinking, a recursive loop that only amplifies the activity. He is deficient in direct thought control because his cognition does not respond to authoritarian commands. It operates more like a powerful, semi-autonomous research department, following its own lines of inquiry. He has learned to collaborate with this tendency, channeling it into productive ventures, but this collaboration falters in context demanding sustained, passive mental attendance. When his brain has unilaterally declared an external process insufficiently stimulating, his presence becomes a facade. Others interpret this as a lack of care or respect, while the paradoxical truth is that his mind cares too much about its own curated set of problems and puzzles to remain idle on command. He is bad at thought-stopping because his identity is deeply interwoven with ceaseless, deep processing. To demand he halted is to ask him to temporarily cease being himself. 6. The refusal to sanction absurdity, incompatibility with illogical systems. All societies and organizations are governed by rules, protocols, and systems. The Sigma male draws a critical distinction between rules that are functional, designed to solve real problems, ensure safety, promote fairness, and rules that are ceremonial, vestigial, power-serving, or born of unthinking tradition. The former he respects and follows instinctively as they align with his internal logic matrix. The latter, rules that are patently counterproductive, inefficient, or senseless, trigger profound cognitive rejection. He cannot, in good conscience, grant them legitimacy through compliance. This renders him a problematic agent within highly structured, bureaucratic, or tradition-bound environments. Confronted with a policy that demonstrably creates more work, reduces morale, or hinders the stated goal, he observes his colleagues sign but complying. Their calculation is one of expended energy. The cost of challenging the rule outweighs a minor daily cost of following it. For the Sigma, this calculation is inverted. The cost of following a stupid rule is the daily, grating erosion of his integrity and the tacit endorsement of inefficiency. It is a tax on his soul. His mind rejects the absurdity as a foreign contaminant. Thus, he is faced with a trilemma of poor options. He can A. covertly violate the rule, operating on the logical path while hiding his actions, which risk being labeled deceitful or insubordinate. He can B. openly challenge the rule, marshalling evidence and logic, which earns him labels like difficult, not a team player, or arrogant. Or he can C. comply, which feels like a surrender of his rational autonomy and is often psychologically the most costly path. Typically, he oscillates between A and B, choosing the path that best preserves his internal integrity in a given context, even as it damages his external reputation for being a good soldier. This friction appears in 1,000 microtransactions, mandatory meetings that are pure theater, redundant paperwork, approval chains that exist only to justify middle management positions, dogma that contradicts observable data. Each instance is a minor abrasion, but collectively they cause significant wear. His inability to master contempt for such inefficiency is often read as arrogance, a belief that he is above the rules. This is a misdiagnosis. He is not above rules. He is fiercely loyal to good rules, to competent authority, and to logical systems. His weakness is a total lack of aptitude for the pervasive social skill of pretending that bad rules are worthy of respect. In a world saturated with procedural nonsense, this inability to play the game is a tangible and often career-limiting disadvantage. He is genuinely, constitutionally bad at respecting nonsense, and the modern institutional world is, in many ways, a temple to it. 7. The disadvantage in chaotic competition, inability to thrive in loud arenas. Place the Sigma male in a direct, one-on-one contest of skill, intellect, or production, and he is in his element. The parameters are clear, the opponent defined, the victory condition objective. He can focus, strategize in silence, and execute with precision. This is his native competitive habitat. However, transplant him into a loud, chaotic, multi-participant arena where success depends less on objective output and more on continuous self-assertion, vocal dominance, and attention-capturing theatrics, and he flounders. His struggle is not a lack of competitive spirit, but a profound aversion to the form the competition has taken. Most open, socially complex competitive environments, e.g., corporate ladder climbing, loud networking events, reality TV-style challenges, inherently reward extroverted traits. The loudest voice, the most persistent self-promoter, the individual most comfortable creating and inhabiting chaos. These environments are not selecting for the best. They are selecting for the most noticeable. The Sigma's mode of competition is inverse. He seeks to win through the undeniable quality and substance of his output. He believes the work should speak for itself. His preference is to quietly produce a superior result rather than loudly argue for the superiority of his mediocre one. In a loud environment, quiet quality is functionally mute. The victor is whoever can most effectively command the communal attention, frame the narrative most confidently, and sell their attributes most aggressively in real time. The Sigma is maladapted for this performance. He can explain his work if asked. He can list his achievements in a document. But the act of simultaneously promoting himself while drowning out others doing the same feels like a grotesque and wasteful expenditure of energy that should be directed toward actually improving the work itself. This handicap becomes glaring in settings like job interviews, especially group interviews, industry mixers, or any scenario where advancement requires outshouting a room of peers. He presents his case cleanly and then steps back, expecting a fair appraisal. But in the cacophony, fair appraisal is impossible. Perception is dictated by decibel level and charismatic force. Thus, he loses opportunities not due to inferior capability, but due to a fundamental inability to sustain the performative aspect of competition. He cannot maintain the persona of the relentless self-marketer. He cannot turn his life into a compelling, ongoing advertisement. He presents his facts and hopes they are enough. In a loud environment, hope is not a strategy. One must fight to carve out auditory and psychological space. And the act of fighting for space when one simply wishes for the space to be granted based on merit is a skill the Sigma male is fundamentally, and often fatally, bad at. Conclusion: reconceptualizing weakness as wiring. If these patterns resonate with a deep, familiar frequency, the experience is far from singular. These are not character flaws to be eradicated through self-help regimens or behavioral conditioning. They are the inherent trade-offs of a specific cognitive and psychological wiring. The very traits that confer the Sigma male his strengths: deep analytical rigor, fierce independence, a loyalty to internal logic over external validation, a capacity for profound focus, generate these corresponding friction points in a world designed for more conventional social and operational software. The reluctance to trust quickly is a corollary of capacity for profound, earned loyalty. The inability to let a logic stand is a shadow of a powerful drive for truth and efficiency. The aversion to the spotlight is a cause of a rich and active internal world. The overanalysis of praise is the side effect of a commitment to genuine self-improvement. The ungovernable mind is the engine of his creativity and problem-solving. The rejection of absurd rules is a manifestation of a principled integrity. The failure in loud competition is the price of a focus on substance over style. To ask him to be better at these things is often to ask him to become less of what makes him effective in his own domains. The struggle is not one of correction, but of navigation, finding environments, relationships, and systems where his wiring is an asset rather than a liability, and developing just enough situational fluency to pass through conventional gates when necessary. The first step toward that navigation is a recognition articulated here, understanding that these are not failures, but features. And once one sees them as such, the perception of the Sigma male, from both within and without, is irrevocably changed.